Brought to you by Moonbeam Multimedia.
This is 16 to 1, a podcast about education, teaching, and learning.
I have to Katy Perry it. One moment.
Are you coming up out of the center of the stage?
I'm ready.
Are you doing the little...
You're kind of taking me out of it, if I'm being honest with you.
Hello.
I'm becoming a diva.
You're becoming a diva?
I'm a prima donna about podcasting now.
You're becoming a podcasting prima donna.
Yeah, I just need to get myself in a bit of a moment here.
You're
like, are you there? Are you in the stage yet? Like, do you think that helps?
Well, I'm just making sure you're fully immersed in the moment.
Are you immersed now?
That was a lot of immersion.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm good.
You had a bit of a day.
Doing well.
Yeah.
For the people who care. It was a day.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's over.
Good. Good.
I've been very busy today.
Yeah, me too. I got through a lot of things. I'm trying a lot of things to manage my easily distracted mind. I'm trying a lot of little tweaks to the way that I work and schedule things. And
it seems to be working for you.
Yeah. And I take a walk every day.
That's
which
nice.
is a new big feature in my life that seems to be helping my brain calm down a bit sometimes.
I like that.
Yeah, I have a lot of projects going on at any given time. It's the nature of being a contractor, but also the nature of being me.
There we go.
Yeah, that's yes, I'm not intending to hide that part of it.
Okay,
but no.
I was just letting you work through it.
So sometimes I get a little overwhelmed with the signal to noise ratio. So walks are just very helpful. And I no longer have a commute since I work from home, which I realize I miss a lot because I used to listen to podcasts on my commute. And not having that it's been very difficult to find just regular time where I'm otherwise, unengaged when I can listen to podcasts. So I've been able to get back into the shows that I love to listen to. So that's...
I think probably one of the things I would miss most if I left my job would be the commute. I love my time.
Yeah. It's a good buffer, too, for you to get yourself ready for the day as you're going in and then to
prep
decompress.
On the way there.
Yeah.
And on the way home, I'm like...
You call your mom.
Bleep, bleep, bleep,
You call your mom and you talk about
it.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's my day. Well, we have a very special thing today.
We do?
We do.
What's that?
We have a submission for the podcast.
Oh.
A knock-knock joke has been submitted.
A user?
For you.
A listener wrote in with a knock-knock
One of our
joke?
favorites, one of my favorite people on this earth, my dear sweet Bubba, sent us a knock-knock joke.
Okay, let's
hear it. I think he
it.
wrote it himself.
Okay, let's have it.
Do you remember how this works?
Yes, I do.
Okay. I'm just
our third or fourth episode in a row with a knock-knock joke now. I'm getting the hang of it. I'm starting to...
You have messed it up.
Well, yeah.
Okay. Ready?
Absolutely.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
DJ.
DJ who?
Bow, 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 bow. Ladies and gentlemen. Oh, my horns.
Wow.
Insert DJ horns here. Can you insert DJ horns into this sound?
Sure.
Okay, let's do that. Let's start over.
Okay.
Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
DJ.
DJ who?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, DJ Who.
Wow.
You're welcome.
Good job, Tracy.
Yep.
Good job, Bubba.
Please make sure you put in those horns.
The sound effect.
He wrote in horns, but I can't do it.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna go
Can you
find...
do that?
Sure.
In post?
Yeah, I'll do it.
You do that in post.
I'll do it. I'll make sure that the post-production team gets that note.
That's you.
We'll retroactively fit some
deleting
horns
that comment
in there.
Now. All right. I'm ready now. We can carry on.
Okay. That was a lovely knock-knock joke.
Yeah, that was Tracy's. He was very proud of it. He texted me and was like, I have something for you.
That's a gem.
And he was like, don't tell Chelsea. And I didn't.
It's
But the best part was that I wrote these notes. Like, I started the notes, and I wrote at the top, insert knock knock joke from Tracy, so Chelsea wouldn't read it. And I totally forgot. So, thankfully, I wrote myself a note. So that was smart.
So he's gonna be, he's gonna have to use his imagination for the look on my face that was happening during that. Because I know he knows what I was looking like.
No one else will.
He's gonna know.
Yeah.
And he's gonna appreciate it. So. Yeah. Okay, so our voices are a little froggy because we both got something that's probably, I don't know. I think I have hay fever because my allergies have been so bad. We're testing negative for COVID, so...
We got our back to school ick.
The back to school ick. So apologies for the vocal quality this week, but this is the time we have to record the show, so this is when we are recording the show.
And this is what you have to listen to.
This is, week 3?
No. 4. Week 4, and I had to take a sick day on week 3.
Yeah.
So this is what we sound like.
This is what we both sound like, but it's okay. We're on the mend.
If you're at all familiar with allergies in the Midwest, you know this sound. This is what most of us sound like.
Yeah.
For a couple weeks on this time of year.
In spring and then fall again, yes.
So, here we are.
Anyway, thanks for bearing with us. Do you want to tell us what we are talking about this week?
Actually, we're being kind of topical again. This is like sort of recent news.
Yeah.
I think we're becoming a news podcast.
I'm not
Watch
sure.
out, Pod Save America.
I'm not sure if we are meaning to, but we're talking a lot about current events happening in the education world just because there are some big things going on.
Well, you can only talk about Horace Mann for so long.
You can only have so many episodes on Horace Mann.
Okay.
One episode. It was enough.
No, there will be more.
Oh, really? Really?
There has to be.
That's okay.
All right.
Interesting.
So this episode is all about for-profit colleges.
Yes.
And debt relief.
Yeah, we came to this topic because we were talking to a friend about the Biden administration's student debt relief proposals. And we started talking about the overlap between those whose loans are going to be forgiven under this new program and people who attended for-profit colleges.
If these
Venn diagram there.
If these were two circles, they would overlap a lot.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And we were talking sort of how much those proposals impact students for graduates or people who went to school at for-profit colleges. There's some overlap there that is a little concerning. So that's kind of how we started down this topic. So we wanted to just cover the basics because not everyone is super familiar with the for-profit college system in this country and how problematic and predatory it can be. So we're just going to briefly cover loans and graduation rates and stuff, but also talk about it in the context of what is going on right now with debt relief. So
what is a for-profit college?
Yeah. So these are colleges that operate as traditional businesses, I guess I would say. They are...
I would say business first, education second.
Yeah, that's a way of putting it. It's very difficult for me to even wrap my head around such an enterprise. The idea of treating education like a commodity to be sold at the biggest profit margin we can squeeze out of it is just kind of
not the way that it. Yeah,
I really, it makes my brain break. But there are people doing it. Plenty of people doing it, offering this kind of education. So yeah, it's education as a commodity offered by these colleges. They're not usually accredited in the same way that typical colleges are. Their primary goal is to grow profits for owners and shareholders by generating more revenue than they spend. In this scenario, lots of tuition payments coming in. That's a great thing. Lots of cost cutting on things like instructional programming and classroom spaces and things like that. There's just a lot of ways to not spend a whole lot on education. And when you think of all the many ways that, for example, your public schools cut costs these days, if you could imagine doing that on a grand scale because you're trying to make as much profit as you can, it just very quickly devolves.
So for-profit colleges spend an average of just 29 cents on student instruction for every dollar that's paid towards tuition. And that's compared to a private college, which spends 84 cents of every dollar in tuition towards student instruction. So you can already see how they're definitely valuing different things about each dollar.
Expenditures on student learning, very different. But also a big difference there. I mean, a lot of this comes from just having nonprofit status, you have to turn over a certain amount of the money that you make back into programming. That's how you have the status that you have. That's how private colleges operate with endowments, and that you're allowed to have tax deductible gifts to these places because they're required to churn back into their own systems a certain amount of the money that they make in the operation of their business.
Another indicator in the spending is that for-profit schools spend $400 per student on advertisements, while public institutions spend about $14 per student.
Yeah, that's wild.
That is huge.
That's why you see...
it's wild. That's a lot of money.
I mean, you know how people get advertising jingles stuck in their head or whatever, their heads from... I remember from when I was a kid, some of these jingles for these for-profit universities, because their ads were on TV so often. And they target specific communities. They target veterans very aggressively. We'll have to see how that changes, because the Biden administration is, I think, trying to change this loophole about there's like this 90-10 rule where these for-profit colleges can't have more than 90% of their funding come from federal resources, which I'm not sure how we found ourselves in the 90-10.
That feels like a big
split to begin with. But anyway, so we're closing the loophole there. But anyway, there are just a whole lot of problems about how much these institutions do not put back into the project of actually educating students. Now, if it were the case that they were somehow operating under this business model and doing it effectively, namely conferring good and useful degrees to graduates on a regular basis, that would be a much different scenario than the one we're in now.
The game for a for-profit university or college is how long students attend school. That is the goal. So we're talking like 5 and 6 years for degrees rather than a traditional 4 for an undergraduate. And that's how they do it. That's how they get you into it, because it takes longer to achieve a similar degree, but you spend so much more over time and you get so little out of your investment as far as back on your dollar.
Mm-hmm. You have a lot of problems with transferring credits or having future employers recognize your degree, things like that. These places, because they don't have the accreditation that other colleges and universities have, they often struggle because their graduates have a real hard time entering the workforce, even beyond just the debt and the commitment of trying to go to school in the first place. They sometimes end up with degrees that are basically useless. And then the other thing that can happen is that sometimes these businesses can just go out of existence because of, fraud or any number of things that have been happening. Yeah, bankruptcy, fraud,
they get all these places all the way to the end of the road.
So these places can just fold and suddenly you end up having nothing except debt at the end.
Or a partially completed degree. I mean, it's a nightmare.
Yep.
So that comparison to nonprofit college.
Yes.
So a not-for-profit school includes public colleges, private nonprofit colleges, whereas we talked about a for-profit is like business first, education second. Hopefully, the goal of a nonprofit college is education first. So these schools can receive funding from the government, tuition, endowments, and then that money is generally used to put back into the curriculum, into the instruction, and other operations that colleges and universities would have.
So this is the more traditional model for higher education institutions in this country.
Well,
anyway.
And I mean, for Chelsea and I both, for our undergraduate, part of what was paid was towards all kinds of things that you experienced as a student. So the activities and the events and the groups, those are all parts of nonprofit college that are sort of like, I don't know, like what you see in the movies about going to school. And that's one of the big differences is that when you attend something that ran like ITT Tech or DeVry, that wasn't your experience. You were just a student, just doing classes, and usually maybe not even on their campus.
A lot of online classes at these places. Sometimes they don't even meet in person at all. Sometimes when they do, they're meeting in like office parks and business campuses.
Anywhere
like
that they can find space, yeah.
I mean, some of them, I suppose there's a variety of these institutions, so I'm sure some of them look different. But for the most part, this is for non-traditional college experience. So people who are coming to college later, people coming from lower income families, a lot of military and veterans, a lot of pathways to college education here. Mm-hmm. And what that means, though, is that there's just a whole lot of really predatory recruiting and lending practices.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's worth mentioning that if you were like the listener, if you were someone who worked your butt off to get that degree from a for-profit institution, we're not trying to judge the work you've done or your degree or anything like that, but we are trying to recognize that you might have had to work even harder than you would have had to otherwise. And that's just because for-profit institutions generally don't do as good of a job supporting their students to make sure that they're graduating in a timely fashion with the support they need and with a degree that translates into what they want to do with it. So this is not a knock at all for anyone who has attended these universities or anything like that, but rather just trying to make people aware that there might be a better investment for your money.
Yep.
And that these universities target people.
Yes. This gets a little bit at what I was suggesting earlier, but this is kind of a philosophical debate in some ways about how we should treat and talk about education and pay for it and make sure we open up opportunities to it. There are obviously some pretty important principles at work in this conversation, but it's treating education as good in and of itself versus education as a good that is being delivered to a consumer. Private institutions and public universities are not off the hook about this because tuition inflation is happening everywhere. We keep seeing the cost of college increasing, and so people are asking more and more whether the return on the investment is worth it. I think that what we're seeing is a clash that is going to continue to probably pick up steam in this country because the Trump administration rolled back a whole bunch of regulations on for-profit colleges, and now we're trying to pick up the pieces from that as we move forward. So why don't you take us in a little bit of a deeper look into some of these for-profit colleges? So you're going to recognize some of these names like DeVry, American National University. I don't think I knew of that one. Berkeley College, Grand Canyon University, Strayer University, University of Phoenix, Capella University, ITT Tech, Trump University. These are all for-profit institutions of learning.
Yeah. So the average price of tuition and fees for first-time, full-time undergraduate students at degree-granting 4-year for-profit colleges was $15,780, and that was in 2020, 2021. And that data comes from the College Board's Trends in College Pricing 2021 report, and I'll include that in the show notes because it's a really interesting read, actually. But for comparison, that's more than public 4-year colleges, which cost around $10,570 on average. And it's less than that of private nonprofit colleges that were priced at, on average, $37,270. We're talking about $5,000 difference between a for-profit college and a public 4-year university or college, which is a pretty, $5,000. I mean, over 4 years is $20,000, but we know that typically for attending a for-profit college, you're attending for longer than 4 years. So that's just going to keep adding up and adding up.
You also have to consider that the impact of the loan, rather than just the sticker price of the tuition, you have to consider also that higher tuition doesn't only mean higher tuition, it also means you're in debt for longer.
Only 26% of students who completed their degrees at for-profit institutions did so in 6 years or less.
This is the super important one right here.
So by comparison, 68% of students enrolled in a private nonprofit college and 62% of public college students completed their degrees in that length of time. So we're talking about the difference between 26% to 62 and 68%.
Yeah, that's the real damning figure right there. The 6 year so colleges will report 4-year graduation rates that are higher than this. So the 6-year graduation rate, 26%, is truly abysmal in the normal world of higher education.
Okay, so for students who graduate from for-profit colleges, they are more likely to have taken out student loans, and the average amount of those loans is higher than the amount of debt incurred by students enrolled at another type of school. So more than 80% of 2016 graduates from for-profit colleges had student loans. 68% of those that graduated from a private nonprofit college and 66 from a public college had a student loan when they left. So we're talking, 14% difference in those who did and did not graduate with student loans.
it shows that it shows that these for-profit colleges are targeting a certain subset of students, but probably a lot of it has to do by income.
Well,
some of it by race, I know, is happening.
Yeah. So there was a report in 2019 from the Institute for College Access and Success, and they said that graduates from for-profit colleges left school with on average $39,900 in student debt. Wow. So another important piece of this is that for those who attended a for-profit college, they are 6 times more likely to default on their federal student loans, which is what happens after a period of mispayments. And that's usually within 12 years of entering college compared to those who started at a nonprofit college. Wow. So we're looking at, I mean, the data on this is just, there's really no way around it. Like when you see it like this. So to go along with that, what we talked about with the marketing and the advertisements, for-profit colleges usually engage in what we would probably call aggressive marketing.
Yeah.
And they are trying to recruit students for short-term training. And so basically what they're trying to do is appeal to these folks who are looking for direct work into a job market to get a certain, maybe much quicker 2-year, something like that. Most of these people, though, are low-income students of color. And that's who they're targeting more than anyone else, basically.
It kind of reminds me of how TV and phone and internet companies will try to pull you into a plan by offering you details at a lower, what do they call that? That like introductory rate or something. Like that's basically how these colleges function. They lure you in by being like, oh, you can get this really quick certification that'll allow you to do X, Y, and Z in this like 6-month time window. Think of how great that would be. And then it very quickly becomes not that, not 6 months.
For communities that are a majority Black and Latino, they on average are 75 to 110% more likely to house at least one for-profit school. So
like
they
physically like a campus.
Like they are like, this is from the Student Borrower Protection Center, this report or this information. The chances that one of these for-profit schools will appear in those communities is 75 to 110% more likely than another neighborhood.
Wow.
Because that's what they're marketing for.
I mean, it's the same. It's the same reason that you see certain neighborhoods that have payday loan advance shops. And we actually talked a little bit about this when we were talking about the color of law. But there are deeply ingrained reasons for why this happens the way it happens, why these kinds of businesses end up being in certain neighborhoods. And a lot of it has to do with redlining. And a lot of it has to do with all kinds of other societal pressures. But there are reasons why these predatory institutions end up getting clumped together geographically. So you were talking earlier about the targeting for veterans and things like that. There's a report from the president of the advocacy group called Veterans Education Success. And the GI Bill that these soldiers get pays up to $25,000 for a private college annually. So these for-profit colleges are seeing that money basically coming straight from the GI Bills for these people. And that's why they target them so heavily as well. So we're talking like mostly, and that's why I keep saying predatory, or like we keep calling it predatory. It's because they're targeting these communities, they're targeting these groups of people. And we know, I mean, I guess I shouldn't assume that we all know, but veterans face a huge uphill battle when they return from service a lot of times because they might not have whatever current education is most valued or whatever. So these for-profit colleges are looking at these people who don't need to be preyed upon at all and are saying, well, they get this money from a GI Bill. Let's make them come here and make it seem like you can take the classes at night. You can whatever. And it might take 6 years, but you'll get it. And, you know, like that's what I find so frustrating is that they really are targeting specific groups of people. And that's what leaves such a nasty taste, I think, for me. I think the Biden admin successfully closed that loophole so that GI Bill funding gets included with the rest of Title IV funding, which is, I think, the funding source for this stuff. So we're going to maybe see some changes in how aggressively they're recruiting service people because the reason is just all in the dollars. So
they're just getting money.
Yeah. The way that these colleges target potential students, you can tell that they don't have their best interests at heart because it's populations of students who are least likely to be equipped with tools of financial literacy that will help them discern that this is not a good investment necessarily. It's pretty disappointing to watch it happen in real time.
So to connect this to the other part of the episode, which is all about debt relief.
there's this somewhat recent announcement, August 16th. There's an article from CNN here covering how the Department of Education announced that it will cancel $3.9 billion in student loan debt for approximately 208,000 students who attended ITT Tech. ITT Tech is now defunct.
Sad.
They're in a lot of trouble.
Rip.
This brings the total amount of loan discharges approved under Biden to about $32 billion. That's just a lot of loan debt. I'm kind of surprised to know that it was closed in 2016, actually.
I think I confuse them with University of Phoenix a lot. And I also what I confuse ITT Tech with is DeVry. That's the one I always get them mixed up. But I think,
Well, there's another one that's actually, I'm pretty sure it's UTI. The Universal Technical Institute.
They would not name it UTI.
I'm pretty sure they did do it.
Why? Why would we write that check to UTI?
So, yeah.
Why not go get a good old UTI?
Somebody's marketing department really screwed that one up pretty aggressively, but there you have it. That's another private for-profit university.
Can I tell you another kind of related?
Yeah, sure.
Barely related, I would say.
Absolutely.
It's about a college.
Okay.
So that's as relative as I can make it.
Got it.
So Central Michigan University sent out these sticker packs to students. And they sent out the letters because they go by CMU, right? And they sent out stickers to put on students' keyboards.
Oh, no.
But when you read them in order,
no.
the only thing it says is not CMU. It made me laugh so hard I about snorted. I could not stop laughing at whoever in whatever department was like, the students will think this is funny. So either Central Michigan is just leaning into the unfortunate letters or they're just oblivious, which I would say is about as unfortunate as UTI in a couple ways.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways.
Yeah.
Anything else about ITT
Sorry
Tech?
about whoever was in charge of doing the marketing for UTI, but that was just not a good choice.
I mean, it's not the marketing person's fault. They can only work with what they get.
Well, I mean, I guess I'm thinking about the original.
Whoever made that was laughing. And they're probably sitting in a yacht right now, still laughing.
Or they might be being sued by the education
Or they're
department.
sitting in jail. Who
I
cares?
don't know. Who knows?
Okay. Anything else about ITT Tech?
No, that was pretty much it. There's more debt relief on the way, though. There's up
Unrelated.
to 20, yeah, there's up to $20,000 in student loan debt forgiveness. This is an extension on the moratorium on student loan repayments. One final extension through December of this year.
Right. So they've extended that hold on student loan repayments, and this is said to be the last time. And then they also announced up to $20,000 in student loan forgiveness, depending on your funding, where it came from.
Got it.
And there's a website. I don't actually know if it's up and running yet. It's been kind of on hold as they try to sort things out. But if that link is live, I will share it in the show notes as well to see if you're eligible for any of that repayment or forgiveness, I guess I should say. And then the fine print, of course, said that if the amount of relief awarded is greater than your total borrower's debt, then the entirety of it will be forgiven, but you don't make any money. So they're not gonna like cash you a check, or write you a check. But
I only owe $2,000. Can I have the additional $8,000 back?
Yeah, I would like my $8,000 on top,
into my
please.
checking account, please.
I'll take it in gas cards. So that's the current situation. This is where the conversation surrounding this newest forgiveness has been so interesting to follow, I think. So this is a 2022 report from an education economist.
Okay.
Did you know that existed?
No, but that sounds fascinating, and maybe I should change careers.
I know. Okay, so Dr. Carl Salerno used data from the U.S. Department of Ed and determined that about 15% of the federal loan debt currently in repayment was held by people with no degree at all, which is about 12 million people.
Yeah.
And in that same report, he noted that there were racial disparities. So of those who started but did not finish college, about 66% of black borrowers still had debt when they left, whereas only 47% of white borrowers did.
Yeah.
That's the biggest connection, though. Like when we're talking about the issues of these for-profit colleges, it's because of statistics like this.
Yeah.
You are more likely to leave a for-profit university without a degree than you are otherwise.
Most people who go through these programs do not obtain degrees in what is considered to be a
6 years
reasonable
or
time
less.
frame. Yeah, a
Which
reasonable
means
time
that
frame for
74%
college.
of these people are still in school for longer than 6 years.
Or they just never complete
Or
a
they
degree
didn't complete
program.
it. True.
Yeah. So that's kind of one of the things we were talking about, because some of the political kerfuffles around this get caught up in some of the particulars of like, oh, well, you have a college degree and I have a college degree and I paid for my college degree. Why do you get debt? You know, why do you get loan forgiveness? It's like, well,
why am I paying for your degree?
Right. Well, consider just broadly that a lot of times the situation is more nuanced, more complicated than that.
It's way more than just paying for somebody.
That so many of these people are not
Also,
even ending up with a useful degree at the end of the day.
well, and if we can have more people educated, why not?
Yeah.
I hope ITT Tech calls. I like to talk to them.
I want to talk to
I
the
hope UTI calls.
Yeah,
I
I
like
want
to
to
talk
talk
to
to the UTI people, honestly. I think that one's maybe still around.
I might need a shirt.
I think I'm going to need to go and look at a list
Can
of
we
all
go on a
these.
visit?
To UTI?
UTI? Let's go visit and just act like we have nothing. Like that we're just deciding now that we want to be
we should do like
astrophysicists.
what's the like Caught in the Act TV show where they To Catch a Predator? We can like do a To Catch a Predator, but with for-profit colleges' predatory marketing schemes. We just like bust into their communications.
We just
office.
like kick in a door and we're like, we got you. How dare you?
I really like the idea of getting really riled up at a communications officer. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
so,
you know, I've
just
been
some
known to
general
do that.
concerns
Yes.
about for-profit universities and colleges.
Yeah.
And also, maybe just a little bit of nuance to the debt relief conversation.
Yeah.
And sort of the monster that we have created in the United States as far as continuing education and the cost and the worth of
I just
a degree.
Yeah. I really, really struggle with this because I understand how people can end up feeling like the system has treated them unfairly if they emerge with debt when somebody else's debt may be forgiven.
Yeah.
I'm perfectly willing to acknowledge that that is very frustrating. However, when I think when it comes to education specifically, I want to bracket it and treat it not like the rest of every other thing that touches on questions of money and politics. I want to set it aside and be like, this is a special and sacred thing that we need not sully with these conversations. I mean, you know, we can't for practical purposes really treat the problem that way because it's just too pie-eyed in the sky. But I really wish that we could just say, we think that education is the thing that keeps the country stuck together.
You're the old man yelling at clouds.
I am. About this, I am. The thing that keeps the country stuck together, we should make that as available to people as we can. And we should make sure we don't saddle them with a bad investment that haunts them through the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
You know, I wish that we could, as a country, embrace the idea that it's to our own benefit, politically, economically,
to support.
socially, culturally. It is to our own benefit. It is the return on investment in education is higher than any other return on investment that we could have.
Except for Bitcoin.
Wow. I think I'm going to quit the pod.
Sorry.
I think that might have been it. I think
Sorry.
I might have to leave now.
I'm sorry.
That was a funny one. That was a funny one.
Oh.
But
You acted mad.
I am also enraged.
Well, can
by
I
that.
just say one
Yes.
really quick thing? And it was very eye-opening to do the research for this part of the episode because I got to read some stories of what people who were receiving this money were going to get to do because of some freedom and some flexibility that they have not had before. When you read about what some of these people are getting from $10,000, it's remarkable how it can change their lives. So
Yeah.
I'm happy and I'm excited for them, and I hope that it's a worthwhile investment. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm happy for them.
Education debt relief specifically can, these amounts of money can be life-changing money for so many
and
different reasons.
a lot of these people were talking about how excited they were to pay off that debt because they wanted another degree or a different degree or more education, and this was going to make it possible for them. Like, what's better than that? You know?
Yeah.
Good stuff.
All right. Should we move on to this episode's fill in the blank?
Yeah,
All right. Would you like to do last episode's
I
question?
will.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, so the question was this.
Oh, yeah, this is a fun one.
NASA is actively preparing for the launch of Artemis 1. Update.
Oops.
It's not great.
No, it's not anymore.
They were preparing for the
Yes.
launch of Artemis 1. And as of a month ago, the goal of Artemis 1 was to use the moon as a way to learn how to survive on Mars. Artemis 1 has been, I think, benched for a longer amount of time.
Well, they missed the launch window, and they're having problems with the liquid fuel system.
So anyways.
Anyway, yeah.
So before Artemis 1, the last crew to land on the moon was Apollo 17, and that was in 1972. The final Apollo mission set the record for the longest crewed deep space flight. How long was that flight? And they were up there for 12 and a half days. That flight was 12 and a half days.
Ooh.
That's a long time in a small
I've got questions.
1970s rocket.
All the really glamorous space movies that I watched as a kid of the Apollo missions and stuff, I don't think any of them really tackled the reality of
You thought those were glamorous?
I mean, they were for me because I was obsessed with the space program.
I know that I'm speaking to the VIP and the MVP of Space Camp, but I didn't look at Apollo 13 and be like, well, they're really living in that hunk of junk. Like,
I mean, but the excitement and the adventure and the pioneering nature
I know,
of it
and then
all.
you think about what they were flying with and how our phones have more processing speed and capacity and everything than those whole rockets did.
Yeah.
Like, they were truly riding a rocket. Like, you can't convince me otherwise. With a heat
riding
shield.
a stick of dynamite.
With a heat shield.
Yeah.
And some oxygen.
Yeah.
Anyways. That was last.
Yeah, no, I was going to say you don't really commonly think about the missions being quite that long, or at least I don't when I think about the Apollo missions. They are, in my mind, for some reason, quick little jaunty trips to the moon and back.
I guess I know that the Gemini were much shorter than that even. I mean, some of those were hours long. So I think I just know that Apollo is longer, but 12 and a half days is a long time.
Well, yeah, I'm just thinking about the waste disposal systems that must have been in place for...
You mean like when they pee in Apollo 13? Isn't that Kevin Bacon? Oh no, he gets stuck at home. Kevin Bacon is when he gets sick, isn't it?
I don't remember.
I think it's Kevin Bacon who gets stuck at home.
Kevin Bacon gets stuck at home and can't go
Remember
home.
he's in the shower?
I don't remember.
I think
that
it's
part of
Kevin
the movie.
Bacon. Oh no.
We're going to have to rewatch that movie, I think.
Oh, I could watch that tonight.
Okay.
I'm ready.
Okay.
Goodbye. Click.
Goodbye, we're going to go watch Apollo
Anyways,
15.
all of that is to say,
Yes.
Apollo 17
12 and a half days in space.
was there for 20 hours.
Okay,
12 and a half
cool.
days.
All right.
Woo!
This episode's question.
Can you tell that the burnout is like so real?
Ugh, both of our brains are mush. Okay. This episode's question. Very relevant to today's topic.
Yeah, good
this
job.
piece, I know I worked really hard.
Oh my goodness. Did you steal that from an article I got you?
No. Found my own article.
Okay.
This piece of legislation officially implemented the direct lending program, the modern day incarnation of the federal student loan program in the U.S. Under this program, the government can now directly lend to student loan borrowers instead of through a private institution, which had previously been the only system since 1965. So what was the name of this act that changed the way we do loans and then do them directly to students? Hasn't been around for that long in the grand scheme of things.
Really hasn't. Okay. Now,
Yeah.
the last bit.
Yes. Can I go first?
Well, can I say one thing?
Yours is more fun than mine. I want to go first.
Okay. Usually, I am just coming up with scraps for the what we learned portion of the pod. And no one else can see this, but I want my work to be recognized.
Yeah.
Chelsea wrote one word.
I did.
I wrote one moment.
You wrote an essay, a small essay.
It's a paragraph. Now you sound like my students. You're like, oh, I just wrote a whole essay, and I look and it's like 2 paragraphs. I wrote 222 words about what I learned.
That's a...
So tell me about your one word.
Oh, my one word. I put down one word. What I learned this week was about Jenkins, which is just...
That's it. The end.
It's just a bit of software that allows you to automate the process of rolling out software applications and distributing updates to your users. I'm familiar with the way that the deployment process works when you lock into certain platforms, but this is open source software, so you can self-host it and put it anywhere. And it just is this thing where you hook up a bunch of pieces and then it all kind of magically mushes together in this deployment pipeline in the middle. And then out the other end comes software that people can use.
Wow.
Yeah.
Poops it out.
I just hadn't heard of... Yes, exactly. Secretions are now your business product. Congratulations, you have IP secretions. Okay.
Still better than
I'm
UTI.
I'm secreting intellectual property, which is indeed much better
That's what you... Never mind.
than UTI.
Okay.
Anyway,
what I
why
learned.
are we so gross this week? I think we're just both very morose. We're both in a weird headspace.
We're in a bad place.
It's just been a long day. Okay,
It
anyway.
has been. It's been a long 4 weeks.
It's been a long.
Okay.
Barely through the start of the school year. Yes. Anyway.
I'm like halfway through 9 weeks, maybe. Okay.
Almost there. Okay, what did you learn?
So I ran into one of those things that's like a list of things that are way larger than you thought they were, or smaller.
Oh,
right.
okay.
Have you seen these? Have you fallen into these
have
holes
not,
on Twitter
but
before?
It sounds delightful.
You've never seen these on like Twitter where they're like, "Did you know the size of this was this?" And it's like,
I have not. I really haven't seen that format. No.
oh, okay. Well, I did. So I'm talking about Michelangelo's David. Okay. I knew it existed. I'm not an idiot. I was not under a rock. Okay, I know this. I didn't know he's 17 feet tall.
Yeah.
I was thinking like 1.5, like 9 feet. I was not expecting 17 feet tall and 6 feet wide.
No. Yep.
So I actually saw a video of somebody on scaffolding and they were cleaning him. And that person was so little.
So little.
Like 17 feet is huge. Okay. So what that made me do was a deep dive into Michelangelo.
Yes.
And so here is just a brief history of Michelangelo's David.
Please tell me everything about it.
Okay. So David was created between 1501 and 1504. He's marble. And at the time, Michelangelo was 26 when he got the commission to create him.
Okay.
I'm so old. Okay.
Yeah, what have I been doing with my life?
Not carving David.
Good Lord, I got some work to do.
So David was famously attacked by another artist in 1991 because a 16th century Venetian painter's model ordered him to do so.
Yeah, I remember this guy. He was in some psychological distress and he defaced the statue.
His left toes with a hammer that he had hidden. Okay. So, since the creation of David, people have actually been fighting about where he belongs like the entire time. So initially they wanted to put him on the roof of the Florentine cathedral, but he weighs more than 6 tons.
Also, the acid rain would eat him.
Well, he's a chunky boy. He can't go up there. Too. That was the first idea.
Of where now?
It said the
Chapel?
Florentine cathedral.
Oh, the Florentine. Oh, okay.
Okay.
I mean, that would be pretty up there.
Yeah, he would look great. After they decided he was too chunky to put up top, they were going to put him outside of like a common city area. You know what I mean? Like, so he could be seen and appreciated. So they started there. It took them 4 days to move him a half a mile from the workshop where he was created to that home. Okay.
I can't believe they actually tried to put him outside.
He sat outside for hundreds of years.
Yeah, I can't believe they intentionally put him back outside, though.
Well, here's what happened.
Okay.
When they realized they couldn't put him on the roof, they said this ground will do.
Okay.
And they apparently weren't thinking about what 6 tons of marble would do to the ground below it.
Make
and
it go down.
Also the damage of bad, footing would do to him. Okay. So they realized in 1873 that his ankles were very weak. And it was because of how insecure the ground was because he weighs 6 tons. And he's been sitting there for 300 years. So then they moved him inside of a gallery in Florence. And that's when they tried to start taking care of his ankles.
Yes.
Because they realized that if he kept sitting outside, he was going to need a lot more work. So, fun fact, during World War II, they actually entombed him completely in brick to try to protect him from any sort of bombs that might happen.
Ukraine has been doing that to some of its monuments.
Yeah.
They've been protecting them from bombs.
They bricked in all 17 feet of David.
It's a lot of brick.
It's a lot of brick. And he's still there today. He was undamaged through World War II. He is still well taken care of, and he's very well loved, and he's visited constantly. And they build, scaffolds to clean his entire self. And they're still very worried about his ankles.
Yeah, they're very worried about his ankles because there's a lot of earthquake activity in Italy.
And he sat incorrectly for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Just weakening that marble the entire time.
Was it a New York Times article? There's a really cool New York Times article about this. We'll put it in the show notes about David's ankles, but I read it a couple of years ago and it stuck with me. But yeah, it's a huge
so cool.
piece. I have had the opportunity to see it, and I was telling you this as we were preparing the show notes, but that I'm not very well versed in visual arts enough to be blown away by buy it when I see it very often. I just don't know enough about sculpture and painting and things like that to instantly recognize the power of a piece in front of me, because I don't have the interpretive skill that I have with like I'm better that way with music. I'm better that way. Yeah. I'm much better with music because music is in my DNA, but with visual arts, I enjoy looking at it.
See, I have been stopped by visual art multiple times in my life.
I have
just like, holy cow, wow. Well, like when we saw the Michelle Obama piece, the National Portrait Gallery, I think I just froze because I couldn't believe how beautiful it was.
Well, yeah. No, I mean,
I'm not comparing that to David, but you know what I mean.
No, I was going to say I've had that experience, just not very... it happens way more often with music for me because I'm able to access sort of deeper levels of meaning with music because I understand it better. But with visual art, not so much. But one of the moments in my life when I have been stopped dead in my tracks by a visual piece of art,
it was a hunk of David.
It was the David, because I walked in to that gallery where he's currently living, and I also had no idea how big he was, and I just like walked in and my jaw just dropped and I was just staring. So
did you expect him in that room where you didn't know where he would be?
I didn't
did you know when you turned the corner he was going to be there? Okay, that's
and
cool.
he's at the end of the long hallway of other,
but the whole time you're just like,
wow. He's at the end of the long hallway of other Michelangelo statues, and there are just people coming out of the stones all the way down. But you're like, he's at the end in this big, and it opens up,
and he's the biggest
big giant atrium at the end, and he's cool. And I had no clue. I went in that room and I just stared for like an hour. I just didn't move. I just stood there and stared at it. Yeah, because I had no idea that it was.
That is so cool.
That massive. And I'm like, okay, now I get why this isn't all of the textbooks. It's the sheer size of it really does something for it.
Well, and I think I'm not going to be an idiot who's like, I wasn't impressed with David. I'm not an idiot. I knew to be impressed. But when I saw the scaffolding beside him, I was like, holy, like it did not occur to me that he was that large. That was really my story. I think I've only ever been like that, actually taken aback by something a few times. Like the sight of something.
Yes.
Like that Michelle Obama piece just blew my mind because it was so beautiful. And like flying over the Swiss Alps in the morning was like, I just cried when I looked out the window.
Yeah, the Swiss Alps did that to me.
You know what I mean? Like I see those and it's just like, well, I guess it's time to go through every emotion I've ever felt and I will sob.
Well, if you see those mountains too, it's the same effect because they're so much bigger and taller and more imposing than the mountains that you think you know.
Well, and at the time that I flew over them, I hadn't even seen the Rockies. So that was... like I kind of upped my mountain game a little too much.
Study abroad trip.
Yeah. So I was in Appalachia and then I flew over the Swiss Alps. Like that's not even like reasonable. Like what was I doing? That was so dumb. I was just shocked and I was like, okay, well that's the peak and I'll never experience that again. But I can only imagine that because seeing that picture of David was enough for me to, I mean, I've spent an hour reading about him after that because I could not believe the size of him. So I learned about David. And I've gone on this before, but I've shared a couple other articles about just art kind of stories that I've found fascinating, and David's now one of them.
Yeah.
I'm very late to the Michelangelo party.
Well, that's okay.
I'll just admit it.
Better late than never.
Yeah, I got there. I'd like to see him, I think.
Yeah,
I think he's pretty high on my list, actually. I think Florence might be super high on my list now to see all of that.
I would love to go. Let's go.
Because I didn't make it to Florence. I did Tuscany, and I did Cinque Terre.
I mean, you were close.
What?
You were close.
Well, I couldn't see him from where I was.
Well, we'll just have to go back.
My winery. No. Anyways, it was really cool. And I just think that kind of art is something that we don't get here in America. Man, 26 and he carved David. What am I doing?
Yeah, I'm running out of time. I got to get on this.
You're about to Alexander Hamilton it.
I think it's time to leave, and I think I need to go work right now.
She gets out a slab of marble.
Here we go.
Starts chiseling.
See you in 2 weeks.
We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Listeners, thanks for supporting 16 to 1.
We're trying to grow our audience, so please check us out at 16to1.com, all spelled out, and tell your friends about the show.
On our website, you can find links to follow us on social media, an archive of all our old episodes, and a contact form where you can get in touch.
Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you next show. Brought to you by Moonbeam Media. We did not think about that name when we said it out loud enough.
Why?
That's hard to say. Like, why did we pick that?